There are over 130 people on death row in the state of North Carolina. This is part 7 of the series. Jeffrey Neal Duke, 21 years on death row. He was found guilty in 2003 of killing Ralph Arthurs in his apartment as well as Harold Grant, Arthurs' neighbor. Linwood Earl Fort, 21 years on death row. Known as the Nightstalker, he is the main suspect in a 1994 murder and was connected by DNA to a string of essays and killings that occurred in Goldsboro, North Carolina in 1990. Fort's first known attack happened on May 26, 1990, at the residence of 70-year-old Eliza Jones. He tried to strangle her in her bed, but had to leave when her daughter came home. When asked who the offender was, Jones said she couldn't recall and couldn't offer any leads. Hattie Davis Bonner, 79 years old, was discovered suffocated in her bed on July 14, about 2 months later, in a way strangely resembling of the first incident. On October 6, Fort forced entry into the house of Alvin Bowen, 78 years old, and his blind wife Thelma, 75. Before killing Thelma by strangulation, Fort repeatedly stabbed the old man. He then set fire to the house and their car using flammable liquid in an attempt to hide the crime scene. The neighbors saw the ensuing fire and promptly reported it to the authorities, who were able to put it out before it spread to the couple's bedroom. The police found it difficult to obtain any pertinent information that would help them apprehend a credible suspect. Thus, the local chapter of Crime Stoppers was offering a $2,000 prize to anyone who could provide information that resulted in an arrest. All 4 cases eventually went cold due to a lack of leads or potential suspects, and at the time they were regarded as some of the most well-known unsolved homicides in the state. Fort was found guilty in 1996 of discharging a gun inside his Dudley residence. He was required to provide a DNA sample because he was a convicted felon. After his DNA was connected to the Nightstalker killings 5 years later, he was arrested on April 30, 2001 at his Dudley employer. Detectives allegedly discovered evidence connecting him to the 1994 murder of 46-year-old Dora Ann Thomas, who was discovered essayed and strangled at her Goldsboro apartment on June 30, 1994, while he was awaiting trial at Central Prison. Scott Allen, 21 years on death row. Following his 1999 arrest, Scott David Allen was given a death sentence in 2003 for the murder of Christopher Gailey. Scott has consistently claimed that he is innocent and that there isn't any forensic proof linking him to the crime. Important evidence was mismanaged, disregarded, or even lost by the authorities, such as a bloody knife discovered at the scene. Terence Elliot, 21 years on death row. Terence Rodriguez Elliot killed Alice Mae McLeod McCrimmon on January 28, 2001. She was a 77-year-old widow who didn't have a dependable heating system in her mobile home. She was a frugal woman who cautiously gathered pennies. Elliot broke through her window and then battered, strangled, and essayed her until she passed away. There were several blood splatters on her bedroom walls and headboard. Additionally, he managed to knock out one of Mrs. McCrimmon's teeth, which was subsequently discovered embedded in her back. Elliot smoked a cigarette and dropped 2 used condoms on the ground, leaving his unfinished cigarette at the crime scene. Paul Dwayne Cummings, 20 years on death row. On October 4, 2002, Paul Cummings stabbed his next-door neighbor, a 62-year-old Wilmington woman, 16 times, torturing her to reveal her ATM PIN number so he could withdraw money to buy drugs. Christopher Goss, 19 years on death row. Using kitchen knives, Christopher Edward Goss fatally stabbed his neighbor, Deborah Sturgill Veller, on September 22, 2003 at her house, leaving over 50 puncture wounds on her back, neck, face, hands, and arms. William Raines, 19 years on death row. On September 6, 2005, a jury found Raines guilty of the first-degree murder of Philip Lester Holder and Pamela K. Holder, as well as the robbery of Philip Holder with a deadly weapon. 6 linear blunt force wounds to his scalp, some fracturing his skull, were inflicted on Philip. In addition, he suffered 2 bullet wounds to the back of his head, and one above and between his eyes. Both of these gunshots sent projectiles into his brain. There was a third bullet wound on his hand, close to the base of his thumb, on the palm. Pamela did not have a fractured skull, despite having 4 linear blunt force wounds to her head. She had been shot twice, once in the right shoulder and once in the back of the head, where the bullet eventually entered her brain. Her being shot while seated was consistent with both gunshots. Jeremy Duchesne Morel, 18 years on death row. On August 21, 2003, late in the evening, Morel went up to Lawrence Matthew Harding, who was sitting in his own car in a parking lot next to his workplace. After driving Harding to Durham, Morel used a gun to shoot him twice in the head and neck, killing him. He then put his body in the trunk and stole a watch and about $130 from him. Morel left the car and Harding's body outside a bus stop in Richmond, Virginia, 3 days later. It was not until August 29, 2003, more than a week after the murder, that the victim was found. Daryl Manis, 18 years on death row. He was indicted for 1 count of murder, 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 3 counts of assault with a deadly weapon with the intent to kill, 3 counts of assault with a firearm on a law enforcement officer, and 1 count of robbery with a dangerous weapon. He was convicted of 1 count of first-degree murder on the basis of malice, premeditation, and deliberation, and also under the felony murder rule. Following a capital sentencing hearing, the jury recommended a death sentence. Ryan Garcel, 18 years on death row. On June 22, 2004, Ryan Gabriel Garcel robbed 71-year-old Margaret Hutchins Bennick in her residence with the use of a firearm and then strangled her to death. On March 30, 2006, a Rutherford County jury declared him guilty of first-degree murder, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and conspiracy to commit robbery with a dangerous weapon. Garcel was sentenced to death for the first-degree murder. Eugene Johnny Williams, 17 years on death row. On December 8, 2004, Eugene Johnny Williams was convicted of the first-degree murders of Nicholas Gillard and Cedric Levy. Mario Phillips, 17 years on death row. Phillips killed 4 people during a heist, landing him on death row. After learning that his brother had been shot in the head in a separate incident, Phillips carried out the killings on December 19, 2003. Phillips used ecstasy, Mary Jane, and alcohol on a binge after mistakenly believing that his brother had passed away. He went to his mother's home at the Carolina Lakes Trailer Park in Carthage early that morning to inform her of the bad news. His friend Sean Ray and girlfriend Renee McLaughlin were with him. The 3 of them went to acquire Mary Jane from neighbor Daryl Hobson's house after he spoke with his mother. Although Hobson didn't have any, he led them to a different house in the park where he believed some may be. Eddie Riles, 21, his girlfriend Amanda Cook, 15 years old, Carl Justice, 18, and Joseph Harden, 19, were all inside the trailer. What started out as a drugs purchase swiftly escalated into an armed robbery. Court documents state that Phillips took a pistol out of his waistband and fired 2 shots, striking Riles in the stomach and chest. In addition, he kicked Riles, took a shotgun, and struck him in the face while asking for money and narcotics. After that, Phillips continued shooting, striking Harden and Justice. Both individuals died as a result of their wounds. Then, they led Hobson and Cook into the kitchen and told them to lie down. Hobson was shot by Phillips in the neck at close range after being stabbed in the chest. Ray was told by Phillips to kill Cook. Nevertheless, she managed to rise off the ground and fought Ray before Phillips shot her twice. After that, Ray gave the girl 22 stab wounds and a slit to her throat, and the 2 guys doused the trailer with gasoline to start a fire. Unaware that Phillips and Ray had noticed her, Cook, who had survived the attack, managed to escape the burning trailer and entered the rear of a vehicle. After picking her up, the men loaded her into the back of another vehicle with bags of rubbish and transported her to the trailer park's trash dump. They left her in the truck while firefighters started battling the fire. Cook ultimately made it through the attack and testified as an eyewitness at the trials of Phillips, Ray, who was given a life sentence, and McLaughlin, who was given 16 years for her role in the killings. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.